What if the world woke up one morning to learn that the fairy tale children of a royal prince were never royal at all? No succession, no titles, no truth. What if Archie, Harrison, and Lilibet Diana, the children we've seen in glossy black and white photos, cradled by a doting Prince Harry and beaming Meghan Markle, were, in fact, not even his children? Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. That's the news that shattered the stillness of Buckingham Palace today. Not whispered in the tabloids, not speculated in fringe corners of the internet, but confirmed, with the royal seal, with trembling hands, and a public stripped bare of illusions. King Charles III, the reigning monarch of the United Kingdom, signed a document behind locked palace doors, a document that revoked all royal titles and privileges previously associated with Archie and Lilibet. The words were cold. The decision was final. The reason? According to private sources from within the inner royal circle, and now rapidly leaking into the press, the royal bloodline could not be preserved based on a lie. The palace could no longer ignore what has been gnawing at its walls since the day Harry and Meghan vanished from royal life. The question that had haunted them in silence. Are these children truly of royal blood? It sounds unthinkable, doesn't it? Unjust, almost cruel. And yet, something forced King Charles to move. Something deeper than duty. Something buried. And it happened today. But what could push a grandfather, a king, to disown his grandchildren in the most public, humiliating way imaginable? This is not a tale of gossip. It's a tale of silence, broken. And in the next hour, we will expose everything. The secret DNA tests. The mysterious letter that landed at Clarence's house. The Queen's hidden codicil in her will. The palace insiders who watched everything unfold and said nothing until now. We'll dive deep into Harry's growing suspicions. We'll explore the eerie details around Lilibet's christening. We'll confront the tapes, the testimonies, and the chilling question whispered behind closed royal doors. What if Harry was never supposed to be a father? Before today, it was speculation. Now it's a reckoning. But first, let's rewind. Because to understand why this happened today, we need to understand what led to this unraveling, and how the royal family, and the monarchy itself, reached a point of no return. It began with a moment of joy. A new baby, a mixed-race royal child, born into history. The media headlines painted it in gold. Modern monarchy. Hope for the future. A new era of inclusion. Archie Harrison Mountbatten-Windsor arrived on May 6, 2019, to global fanfare. His parents, Harry, the beloved spare, and Meghan, the actress-turned-duchess, beamed from behind the scenes. There were no traditional photo ops on the hospital steps, no christening open to the press, no standing on the palace balcony waving to adoring crowds. Everything was carefully controlled. At first, the media blamed it on the couple's desire for privacy. Who could fault that? But over time, royal watchers began to notice cracks in the glass. The secrecy wasn't just selective. It was total. No birth certificate was released for weeks. When it did arrive, it listed an unfamiliar hospital, different from where the palace had initially implied Meghan would give birth. A red flag? Not yet. But it was the first breadcrumb. Then came Lilibet Diana. Born in California in June 2021, thousands of miles from the crown, her name carried more weight than her small body could understand. Lilibet, the Queen's childhood nickname, one she reportedly never permitted anyone else to use. And Diana, the name of a mother lost too soon. It was symbolic. But was it sincere? The palace's reaction was telling. Instead of celebration, there was silence. The Queen released a short, two-line congratulatory message. No photo, no mention on the balcony, no confirmation of a royal christening. In hindsight, it wasn't just awkward. It was deliberate. And yet, the public didn't know that behind those palace gates, storm clouds had already begun to gather. That senior aides were quietly coordinating with legal counsel. That private investigators had been commissioned, not by tabloids, but by the crown itself. Because something about Archie and Lilibet wasn't adding up. Too many missing puzzle pieces. Too many contradictions. And the final straw? A letter. Unmarked. Delivered by hand. Its contents allegedly so explosive, it forced King Charles to cancel 2 days of scheduled appearances. So what did it say? That, my friends, is what we're going to uncover today. But to do that, you need to see how deep this web runs. It's not just about titles. It's about betrayal, blood, legacy, and the terrifying possibility that the monarchy has been deceived at its very core. Ask yourself this. What if someone lied to gain entry into the most powerful family on earth? What if a man gave up everything, his crown, his country, his kin, for children that were never his? What if the queen died knowing the truth and left behind a warning no one was supposed to find? This story matters now more than ever. Because with King Charles's signature, the crown has made its position clear. Archie and Lilibet will no longer be styled as prince or princess. They will no longer enjoy taxpayer-funded security. They will no longer be included in future coronation planning. And, unless the laws are challenged, they are now officially removed from the royal line of succession. Think about that. Removed. Erased. But why now? Why today? That's where things get darker. Because sources say a piece of irrefutable evidence landed in the hands of the royal legal team just 48 hours ago. Something that had been buried, both figuratively and literally, for years. A DNA test? Perhaps. A signed affidavit from a former insider? Possibly. All we know for sure is that the palace moved swiftly. Documents were drawn. Signatures gathered. And at 9:23 a.m. London time, the monarch's office released a single line to the press. By royal decree, and in the interest of constitutional clarity, titles and privileges bestowed upon Archie Harrison Mountbatten-Windsor and Lilibet Diana Mountbatten-Windsor are hereby withdrawn with immediate effect. No elaboration, no explanation, no empathy. But that's not the end. Because this story doesn't just affect Harry and Meghan. It sends shockwaves through the monarchy itself. It challenges the very concept of royal blood. It raises questions that were never meant to be asked, and forces truths into the light that some would rather bury forever. And perhaps the most haunting question of all, did Harry know? Did he suspect? And if he didn't, when did he find out? You will hear it all, including his alleged reaction, his private call to William, and the final conversation he had with King Charles that ended with a single word, enough. And when you hear what that word meant, you'll understand why the fairy tale was shattered. Because nothing, absolutely nothing, could prepare Harry for what was coming next. And as for Meghan, let's just say, when the truth finally landed, even her closest friends stepped back. But what came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. What happens when the man holding the child starts to wonder if it's really his? Not in a moment of anger, not out of jealousy, but quietly. Slowly, over time, in the stillness of midnight feeds, in the odd silence between conversations, in the questions that get brushed off too quickly. That's allegedly where Prince Harry found himself. And it didn't start with some dramatic scandal. It started with whispers, details, little things only a father would notice, things that didn't quite fit. Because the most painful realizations, they don't hit you like a storm. They drip on you, one drop at a time, until you're drowning in them. Let's go back to those early days in Frogmore Cottage. The world had just met Archie, or at least, they were told they did. There was no hospital photo, no family moment on the Lindo Wing steps like with William and Kate's children. Instead, the world was introduced to Archie through a tightly controlled black and white photo in Windsor Castle's St. George's Hall. A peaceful moment. Harry looked glowing. Meghan radiant. Archie was wrapped in a blanket so tight you could barely see his face. But behind the scenes, things were already tense. According to multiple insiders, Harry had been noticeably unsettled. Staff at the time reported him being uncharacteristically quiet, often skipping briefings, avoiding the press, and spending long periods in solitude around the estate grounds. At first, they thought it was just nerves. First-time fatherhood. Post-royal withdrawal. But something else was gnawing at him. Something he didn't say out loud, not even to Meghan. He began doing something strange. He kept checking Archie's eyes. At first it seemed sweet, doting even. But aides noticed he'd stare just a beat too long. He'd ask, "Do you think they'll stay that blue?" Then look away before they could answer. And he asked that same question to multiple people. Staff, friends, even photographers. It wasn't curiosity. It was fixation. And then, according to someone from his former security detail, he allegedly began asking other questions, much quieter ones. Do you think he looks like me? Did you ever notice anything different? Do you think the ears will change? The ears. It sounds ridiculous. But in royal circles, ears mean more than you'd think. King Charles's ears were a source of teasing when he was younger. William inherited them. Harry didn't. But there was something about Archie's ears that reportedly threw Harry off, as if they didn't match either him or Meghan. Not in shape, not in angle, just off. But that was only the beginning. The real turning point, insiders say, came one night after a long argument, one that rattled the windows of Frogmore. It was early 2020, just weeks before Megxit, and Harry, pacing the nursery, reportedly picked up Archie and muttered a line that one staffer swore they overheard through the baby monitor. "If you're mine, why don't I feel it?" Read that again. "If you're mine, why don't I feel it?" Let's stop here for a second. Because this is the moment everything shifts. Have you ever questioned something so deeply personal, something that touches the core of your identity, but you were too afraid to say it out loud? That was Harry's world. A prince raised on image, guarded by protocol, always watched, never allowed to fall apart in public. But now, in private, something was cracking. It wasn't just about Archie. It was about everything. His identity, his choices, his marriage. And there was a reason this moment came just before their split from the royal family. Because according to a leaked palace memo, one not meant for public eyes, Harry had allegedly requested a private conversation with the Queen shortly after Archie's birth. A one-on-one. No Meghan. No staff. It was denied. Twice. That never happened before. The Queen had always made time for Harry, sometimes even more than for William. But suddenly, doors were closing. Why? What did they fear he might ask? Or worse, what did they fear she might reveal? Now here's where the story takes a darker turn. Because it wasn't just Harry who had questions. According to a former royal physician, there were anomalies in the birth records that had never been explained. The hospital listed for Archie's birth, the Portland Hospital, was not originally cleared by palace medical teams. Meghan's team had allegedly coordinated the delivery separately, outside standard royal channels. Some called it privacy. But behind closed doors, it was a security nightmare. Then came the missing delivery logs. 3 nurses from the private maternity ward where Archie was allegedly born were quietly dismissed. No public reason given. One of them, just weeks later, filed for a non-disclosure agreement and vanished from public life. Where did she go? What did she see? What did she hear? We don't know, because every attempt to reach her was blocked by legal firewalls. No interviews. No comment. And yet, around that same time, Harry stopped smiling in photos. Look at the timeline. It's all there. In every public appearance after Archie's birth, you'll notice Harry growing thinner, distant, even hostile toward the press. But this wasn't media fatigue. This was something eating away at him. A royal insider who attended a private Christmas gathering in Sandringham that year said Harry barely touched his food. He sat at the far end of the table, and when Archie's name came up, he reportedly excused himself. Meghan, on the other hand, remained poised, chatty, almost theatrical, and this divide between them only grew wider. Until the day Harry disappeared for 48 hours without explanation, something unheard of for a royal under protection. Where did he go? That's the question no one can answer. But it's widely believed this was the period where Harry first contacted a private medical consultant outside the UK. He wanted answers, quietly. And he allegedly wanted something else. A DNA test. But how do you conduct a DNA test without raising suspicion, without Meghan finding out? That's the part that remains shrouded in secrecy. Some say he took a small lock of hair from Archie's baby brush. Others claim he used a saliva swab from a bottle the child had used. Whatever the case, the source insists that something was sent to a lab under a false name, using a false courier. It was risky, but Harry was unraveling. He needed the truth, no matter the cost. But when the test came back, he didn't open it. He froze. Because what if it confirmed everything he feared? He stored it in a secure drawer at his Montecito residence. According to one staffer who claims to have seen the sealed envelope tucked beneath a stack of journals. For weeks, he didn't touch it. Instead, he grew more distant, agitated, removed from the children's routines. And Meghan? She seemed to double down on the perfect family narrative. Social media leaks, photo ops, holiday cards featuring carefully cropped images of Archie and Lilibet. No clear faces, no full family portraits. Just curated moments. Edited glimpses. But Harry knew something was off. And the question grew louder with every staged photo. Why do I feel like a guest in my own family? He allegedly asked this to his therapist during a session that was leaked to the press months later. But the answer didn't come in therapy. It came in the form of a letter. An anonymous letter. No return address. Delivered not to Harry, but to Clarence's house. And what it said would change everything. Not just for Harry, but for the entire monarchy. But what came next would shake the walls of the crown. And no one, not even King Charles, was prepared for the fallout.